In JavaScript, everything's an object, almost everything, right? We already looked at a bunch of this stuff, right? Objects, arrays, functions. jQuery is an object. Numbers, strings, booleans are primitive data types, but they can be wrapped as objects. So window is the global object in a browser context, right? So if you don't, again, I know I've said this a number of times, but if you don't declare your variable, if you don't start it with var, it becomes a property of the window object. Right? So it comes with some useful properties and methods. Location, window.location, and that's an object that has like, you know, the href or the path name or the host name, whatever. ParseInt, parseFloat, isNaN, encode URI, decode URI, set timeout, clear timeout, a bunch of others. Okay. All right. Interval, blah, blah, blah. There's a date object. So you can do stuff with the date. Regular expression object. Okay, you can do it with the object constructor. You can say new regexp hello, or you can just do a regular expression literal. So just slash whatever slash. We're not going to get into regular expressions today. It would take too long, and I know you want to get to more jQuery-ish stuff. Using a regular expression, whatever. I didn't think I had all these things in here. OK. We're skipping all that. I thought I had that stuff hidden. Somehow it just magically appeared. There's a lot of it. You can look at it on your own. There's a math object. So you can do math functions. OK. So for those of you who are more CSS-y, right, check this out. The object literal notation, right, with the curly braces, it looks a whole lot like CSS notation, doesn't it? I mean, there are subtle differences, but it looks a whole lot, it looks pretty similar. I like that. OK. So here we have var person, OK, first name, last name. Check out hello. See that? That's you can have a function as a value. Whoops, did I? Yeah, sorry. You can have a function be a value of one of these object properties, right? So I can call that function. I can say person.hello with parens. OK. Interests down there. Interest is a property of the person object, but it's also an object itself. Right? OK. Here's something really important to remember about objects in JavaScript. No trailing comma. Okay? Don't put a comma after the last item in an object. You know why? Anybody run into this before? Like in PHP, if you have, I'm sorry, I keep talking about PHP. It's like, I know a little Ruby, but PHP is otherwise the only server-side language I know. But if you have an associative array, you can put a comma after the last element in that associative array, right? And it's kind of nice to be able to do that, because then when you add an element later, you don't have to worry about, oh, yeah, everything broke because I forgot to put a comma there. Here, no comma. That's just the way the spec is, the specification for ECMAScript, which is JavaScript, basically. And almost all browsers are forgiving if you put a comma there, but Internet Explorer is not. It'll throw an error, and your code will break. Okay? And actually, in that case, that's not necessarily dumb of Internet Explorer. It's just a choice. I mean, they have every right. You know, that's what the spec says. No trailing comma. So it says, oh, OK, well, if you put one in there, we're going to throw an error. Right. So whatever. All right. So to access properties of an object, you can use dot notation, or you can use array notation. OK? Dot notation, person.firstname is Carl, person.lastname, blah, 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 right? You just put a dot there, right? person.hello. That'll return, hello, my name is Carl Swedberg, right? So it's kind of cool. When you're using object, when you're creating an object literal, notice inside that hello function, see it says this? This refers to the parent object, okay? So it refers to person, so person.firstName. Okay. Any questions? All right. You can also use array notation. Notice here that first name, last name, and hello are all in quotation marks, right? Because these are actually strings, right? And yeah, you could put a number in there, but that wouldn't do any good. You'd put a number in there if you have like an array, not an object, right? Okay, so why would you want to use array notation versus dot notation? Well, we'll answer that question after this. First, you answer this question. What does this equal? Those two things down at the bottom, person, interest, musical, one, and with the array notation and the dot notation, those are equivalent, right? Those are basically asking for the same thing. So what will that equal? Anybody? Folk. Yep. How many of you don't see, and does anybody not see how it's folk? Go like this or something, like if you're not quite sure? Because I want everybody, yeah.
I just don't understand what the one does.
Ah, excellent. I'm glad you spoke up. The one is for an array, right? Because these things are arrays. Sorry, I'm moving around on you. Okay, so those things are those are elements in an array, and arrays don't have the keys, right? The keys are actually numbers starting with 0. Okay. And notice that with, like, I can use dot notation on everything, but I can't use dot notation for the number, because it's a number. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering why you have interest and musical in quotes where a person is not. And then when you get the dot notation, it's quotes there either.
Ah, right. When
Or will it break if they're not there?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so when you're using the array notation and you're referring to something that's a string, like alphanumeric characters, right? Then it has to be in quotes. It can't be in quotes if it's just dot notation. If it's a number, it's not in quotes because numbers aren't in quotes. Strings are, right? But this'll, I think, give you a better idea of why it's a really nice thing that those are in quotes. It allows you to do something like this, like, okay, person.firstName equals Carl, right? I can set the properties now by doing dot notation.